Okay, let's talk about strings. Let's define a string first. A string is a sequence of characters, meaning letters, numbers, and other characters like the dollar sign, or spaces, or punctuation marks, enclosed by single quotes, double quotes, or even triple quotes when spanning multiple lines. So, let's define a string and assign it to a variable. I am going to create a variable named myString and assign it the following value. So, equals, equals, this is my first string. Let's check the value for this variable. Okay, now let's do the same thing using single quotes. So, my string, this is my first string. Let's check the variable again, and we got the same result. This is correct. So you can use both double quotes and single quotes for defining a string. Now, what do we need triple quotes for? Well, we need them when we want to enter a string on multiple lines. For example, a comment into our code. Let's see how can we do this. Let's assign the same text to the myString variable, this time with each word being on a separate line. So, myString equals triple quotes, this, enter, is my first string. And don't forget to close the triple quotes. Let's check the value for this variable now. Okay, so we got something new here. What's with all the \n's between the words? Well, they are called new line characters, and they signal a new line being created at that particular point in the string. Okay, so how can we get rid of them? Don't worry, it's simple. We just have to add a backslash wherever we want a new line to be inserted. So let's test this. myString equals triple quotes, this, and the backslash is backslash my first string, and close the triple quotes. Now let's check this again. So myString, and we got rid of the \n's. This is what we wanted in the first place. Cool. Now let's talk about indexing, and this applies to other data types also. Python uses indexes to mark the position of an element within a sequence of elements. Strings are also sequences of elements, and those elements are the characters in the string. The first element of a sequence, when counting from left to right, has the index 0. Then the second element has the index 1, and so on. When counting backwards from right to left, the first index will be -1, so the last letter in a string will always have index -1. And the next letter from right to left will have index -2, and so on. Indexes are enclosed by square brackets whenever we want to access some letter of a string. So let's see this in practice. Let's create variable string1 and assign it the value Cisco router. Let's see string1. Okay. How can we extract the first character of this string? Well, by using an index, of course. And that would be index 0. So to access an element of string1 positioned at index 0, we should type the following. The name of the variable, so string1, then without any spaces, the index number in between square brackets, so string1 of 0. And this gives us C, which is correct because this is the first character in the string. Now let's find the third character of string1. What index should we use? Well, index 2, right? So let's test this. String1 of 2 gives us S, correct again. Now let's see the sixth element of the string. We will need string1 of 5, right? So indeed we got the space in between Cisco and router. Don't forget spaces count as characters too. Now for the negative indexes. Let's access the last character in the string. We will use index -1. So string1 of -1 returns R, which is indeed the last character in the string. What about string of -4? Who would that be? Well, let's count. We have R -1, E -2, T -3, and U -4. So the letter U should have index -4. Let's check this. String 1 of -4. Okay, indeed, we were right again. Great. One more thing on indexes. What if we enter an invalid index for our string? First, let's find the length of our string. So for this, we will use a function which is called len. This counts how many characters are in the string and returns the number of characters to us. So let's use the len function. So len of string 1. This is how you use it. You specify the variable name in between the parentheses. So len of string 1 returns 12. So we have 12 characters in our string. Great. Now back to the first question. What happens if we enter an invalid index? Well, let's try it. String 1 has 12 characters, so counting from left to right, the last character should have the index 11, right? Let's test it. So string 1 of 11 is indeed R. So this is equivalent to string 1 of -1. Okay. Now let's see what happens if we enter string 1 of, let's say, 20. So string 1 of 20. Well, we get an error. Let's celebrate. It is the first error that we see in this course. Now let's read the error text. It says index error. This is the type of the error. There are many types of errors in Python, and we will go through the most common ones later in the course. Now let's continue reading this error. It says string index out of range. So Python found out that we typed an invalid index in between the square brackets and told us that the index is indeed out of range because a 12-character string cannot have a letter in position 20, obviously. Now it's time to have a look at some string operations to help us work with this data type.